Well, man, I love your work. I love what you're doing. So thank you so much again for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
I'm sure I'm going to enjoy every moment of this.
Yes, absolutely. Me too.
Sure.
So before we get into your work, before we get into
Yes.
your story, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed so many things for all of us. How did you get through that pandemic, and how has it influenced the way that you work and write and live today in 2025?
Wow. It shut down my field offices for one thing. I had to turn to the podcast and Zoom to continue my research, trying to gather information without physical contact interaction. And so I began to look at my writing more emphatically. I mean, I really began to have the time to reflect. And that's why I'm here because those reflective practices led me to begin to realize the experiences that I was actually moving through with the children and families I was working for. So, yeah, it shut down my field offices, and now I'm digital. I'm here digitally. Um, my learning communities are still working with me. I meet with them periodically. I don't go out and physically involved because my wife has a brain disease, so I'm her caretaker. So I'm her caregiver, I mean. Yeah, so I spend a lot of time on the internet working that way, and then I get a lot of consults through the internet as well. So you ask, I guess I'm still in the pandemic stage because I haven't reopened my field offices where I was really occupied with hands-on interaction with kids, families, and others in the community. Yeah. So yeah, but here I am.
So let me ask you this. If you had to break down what you do on a daily basis to a bunch of kids, 12-year-olds at a school for career day, one of the kids is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I wake up every morning with the intent to evolve from that point forward. So whatever I'm supposed to do is in front of me. So I sense, feel, and focus my brain and body so I can organize myself for the experience of that contact interaction. From there, I take life straight forward, home, school, neighbor, workplace, networks. Those are the four places that I evolve through with my practice. So I would say that that's it. The approach is living each day to become more informed about what it is, what it's going to take for you to experience the right effect, and that's success, whether it's coming through you or the people you're interacting with or even your show. Can I be an effective brain talker that allows your audience to understand why you had me on your show at the end of the day? So live every day to become more informed on what it's going to take to be successful.
So what did you want to be when you were 12 years old? What was your dream gig? What was your life you wanted to have?
Then that's a real tricky question. At 12 years old, my family and I were in crises. So, not losing my life because I was a middle class kid when my mother and father broke up, and I went straight to poverty. And so I was surrounded by kids I had never experienced before, and I found myself fighting every day. So it was survival at age 12. It was don't allow yourself to become somebody else's something, and just trying to figure things out. That's why human system science is dear to me because I could feel what was happening inside of me back then that was guiding me through these relationships. I get myself in trouble, but I never got myself in deep, deep trouble because my brain always had that point in which it paused. It had me pause. And when I paused, I was thinking through the experience. And then I take the next step. I always follow my inner voice, my self talk, and my brain talk. It's always been there working with me.
So who was that hero? Who was that inspirational force that allowed you to get through those early years and to evolve into where you're at today?
Wow, that's a great question. You know, I always say it loud, James Brown, because during that period, I'm in East Oakland, and that music just hit me, and I was just lifted. I'm talking about lifted because it was beyond just the physics. It was, can you hear and feel the experience backward and forward? Because I was at Lockwood Elementary School at the same time that Martin Luther King was shot. So all that stuff was right there in that same period. I say James Brown because he lifted me up and had me understand that I need to study something greater than myself. And then if you look at what Martin was saying at that same time, don't look at my physics, look within the context of me, his character, which is, the social side. But he was saying, look inside within his sense of feel for self and find who he really is. Identify with who he really is, not who you think he is because of his physics. So, I would say James Brown, though. Yeah.
So I'm gonna take that music idea a little further here. Miles Davis once said it took him years to find his voice on the horn. Even though he was playing the music, it took him a while to find his voice. My question to you is this: when did you realize that the brain and figuring out how we work was going to be your focal point? When did this profession become your mission, become your vision?
I'll tell you the first point. Well, I'm going to say my son. Before I say my son, I'm going to say I was in the Marine Corps in 2079, and I was in a tent with fellow Marines, and our tent caught on fire, and God woke me up, and then I realized that I was just functioning at a whole different level. I got everybody out the tent. It wasn't a program. It was a processing event where I was processing interaction with everybody in the tent and got everybody out safely. And then we watched the tent burn. That was the first time I felt my inner sense of feel connecting to that telepathic energy that I talk about in my literature. But never before did I experience brain talk until my son, who passed with complications from schizophrenia, and I had to learn how to talk to him because when he was in that psychosis, his sense path was introverted to his receive path, so he couldn't receive my information unless I recognized I had to get beyond his physics and get inside of him his receive path, which was functioning the lead. So anything I did to him was going straight to his receive path because he wasn't acknowledging me physically. So I had to figure that out. And so brain body sense events became more significant because I had to write this stuff down and then develop a plan on how I was going to learn how to live with him and get him to learn how to live with me. And so the brain and the lead of the body, that concept came alive because his brain was in the lead of his body, but it was it was in a state of delusion. And so, but the concept was real because if you go to Breath of Life, infant comes out brain first, not body first, brain first. So the receive path comes out of the womb to interact with the environment because it wants the breath of life forward and it wants the experience of the environment. So I'm looking at him and I'm saying, this is where my understanding of organization of the self-organizing human system, the brain, body, and sense systems, became part of what I say others may marginalize, but that's your technology.
Yes.
So when I was working with him, that's what I learned. I learned that if I talked to his brain, he would control his body because he knew telepathically I was reaching for him, not his body. I was reaching inside of his spirit, his sense of feel for self, and trying to connect with, I'm real out here. Can you feel me? You see, and I would talk to him the same way. I'm talking about, I use 4 words in my literature: learn to live with me, learn to learn with me, learn to think with me, learn to respond with me. Those are all experiences, action oriented experiences that whether I'm there or not, he can live with you or anyone else because I'm teaching him how to live with me, how to live with others, how to learn with me, how to learn with others, how to think with me, how to think with others, how to respond with me, how to respond with others. So it really came from my work with my son.
So, as a writer, what was a book for you that was very instrumental early on that gave you that thirst for reading or made you think, I want to write, I want to do this one day?
Wow. You know, there's a whole bunch, but none more emphatic than my reentry into the educational system. And I got into Hilda Tubble, John Dewey, the Chicago School, because they fascinated me with the brain. they were a cognitive science school in a behavior system, and they outwardly talked about the disadvantages of children coming through today's academic school system and being confused because they're not dealing with the brain, they're dealing with the child's body, and they want the child to respond to the curriculum, not think. Give them the predetermined response, like on your show. Do you want the predetermined me, or do you want what we're doing right now, me to spontaneously respond to your question, which you lets you know his brain is on. No, that was the cognitive side of Bloom's taxonomy. That's why they look at him and say he was great. Yeah, but all he did was took information processing and transcended it into the classroom. We had to recognize the child's brain because now you're looking at feedback loops that move from information reception to how the child processes and gives you that feedback loop that you can measure inside the classroom. Before it was Skinner's black box, you just receive and respond. We didn't care what the child felt or whether the child was upset with the instruction. We just cared that the kid did exactly what he was told and programmed to do, root memory. In the century that I evolved through, cognitive science was really, really inspiring because it told me and it connected with what James Brown was saying when he was singing to me about, be proud of who you are. No, wait a minute. And we're not talking about the black side. We're talking about be proud of who you are as a human being. That's what I resonate with because you see, what we're talking about is what does it mean to be human? How do you feel when you're acting human? There are so many parts of our experience where we don't get to understand that. We just evolve through the program and we are whatever the program designed us to be. But what you're asking me is tell me the truth. What have your experiences taught you? My experiences have taught me you don't just give trust. I teach children you don't just give your trust. You don't just let me in. You only let me in if I show you signs of care, because if I'm showing you signs of care, you can measure that in terms of the way that I'm participating with you and the way that you're participating with me. And then the dialogue that we're having is evidence-based proof that we are actually engaged in conversation. Now, the caring part may be hidden because this is our first interaction. But I'm saying to you, that's what you want children to understand because you have too many children going to mental health issues, mental illness issues, because they've been hurt and they don't trust any further. I teach them, no, no, you look for signs of care that you can move through. I didn't say that you can lower your guards to, that you can move through to the next step of evaluation. Same thing as what Bloom is saying, except you're teaching the child how to sense, feel, and focus their energy as they move through the crisis of self.
So let me ask you this. What gets you up every day to do this work? You got to obviously stay on top of the field. You got to take care of your soul. You're changing lives with your work. What is that motivation every day for you to do this at a high level?
My wife, no, in her deepest, darkest moments, she's got my back. Now I have to have my own back today, but I'm saying to you, I'm up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. She's not worried. She knows exactly where I'm at and what I'm doing. But when she comes through, she comes in and sits there, and we go through a reflective period together. And she knows exactly what I'm looking for, and she knows how to talk to me. Now, remember, I am a human scientist, so I'm always talking to her brain. So you have to understand what I'm saying to you is that we're telepathically connected. And that's why we're successful together because we operate in a real, natural level of functionality where we're measuring each other's capacity every moment. So she knows all I want her to do is stay in touch with reality. I just want you to continue to function and let me know that you're still there and I'm helping you to move through your day. That gets me up in the morning because we are practicing human system science together. And she knows exactly what I'm trying to get her to do. So when she's not with me, she's able to sense, feel, and focus the crises that she's moving through because that she knows what has happened to her. But how do you move through that crisis of not being able to perform at the level that you're accustomed to. And you got all these people trying to make your decisions for you. And I'm saying to her, every step of the way, that's why I'm here. I'm here to make sure that your voice is heard. And so when I'm working through that continuous feedback loop. And I'm saying at the end of the day, she wants me to be successful at what it is that we are doing together. She was my research assistant, more clarity there. And so my work is her work. My success is her success. And so the fact that she still realizes the urgency through which we work this practice through, that's very meaningful and it gets me up every morning.
So, your latest book, Human System Science in the Best Interests of the Child's Mental Health and Self-Awareness. Talk to me about this book.
That's that book is a combination of four books. You asked me that question about the best book. I went on outside myself. I thought about a lot of people. I mean, I that have really impacted authors, theorists, others that have done the work that I'm doing that I wish I could be more like. Um, and so at the end of the day, I'm saying to you that Education of Science 2009, learn how the brain learns, learn how the body lives, learn how human system research responds. Bam. That's a home run for me because that set the course of my reality because I'm working with my son and he's responding to that and he's telling me, like, if you look at the opening of the book, I say speak the truth. That's my son talking to me. When he's running down the street in a level of psychosis and I'm running behind him and we're talking and interacting, he's he's telling me at the end of this, keep speaking the truth, Dad. That's why I'm still here. Keep speaking the truth, Dad. But it's learning how his brain learns, learning how his body lives through the crisis self. And that's to understand how to connect the brain and lead of the body so that his brain responds to us. I said us. Here we did on mental health. I said us. He has to respond to the voices that we talk through. So the language system that I'm writing through came from my actual interaction with my son and other children like him because I've been working with children in crises for over 25 years. And the way you talk to their brain makes a difference. Now, people don't understand this. A lot of people that I've interacted with don't understand this. Parents don't understand this. But there's a neurologic connection that we all have with children because they are brain first. They eat everything you say. And the problem is you're training them at the same time. That's where the confusion comes in. I go back to Bloom, and I'm saying, no, the confusion comes in because you're training the brain, but the infant is a processor. Our children come out processing information, flow from the environment. You then want to train them, which means you want to shut down the receive path and turn it to the sense path. I'm talking about my son again, who I'm saying in psychosis was that's what I'm saying. And the receive path now takes a back seat to the body. Now the body's in the lead. Now everybody's trying to stop this person from doing these devilish things, but they taught the kid to move through the physics of self versus the neurophysics of self, the crisis of self. So that first book really set the course for me.
So, of everything that you've accomplished and you've obviously evolved to at this point in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Ultimately, the proudest of. Wow. I'm going to still say my son because you know what he taught. You know what he taught me. He taught me I may have thought I was a great dad, but the real deal was I wasn't because he taught me how to look inside myself and realize what I what I or my concept of parenting really was. Now I go back to what I'm saying to you. I'm trying to train his brain so he can be socialized into our culture. But he was a processor. And the problem was, like, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. My son was a big kid who never got to be a kid because he was so large. You know, he was over 8 pounds when he was born. And everybody treated him like, you got to stop. If he moves, everybody was on him. He's gonna hurt her. He's gonna hurt him. He couldn't be a kid. Tension, stress, pressure from the breath of life forward. We talked about this, and I tried to explain to him, son, what I was interested in doing and making sure was that you had discipline, because that's the only way you would be able to survive in this culture is if you embody an understanding what it feels like to have discipline, as everybody else is demanding that you do things a certain way. But if you have discipline, then you have mental control over yourself. But he taught me in that same concept because, we reflect. Yeah, I'm listening to him, but then you take a deeper reflection on yourself. You say, you know what? He's absolutely right. And you know what you did right and what you did wrong. I'm talking about interpersonally, we know what we did and did not do right and correctly. So I'm saying to you, my son, because he taught me what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be a dad, and not change, but change for him so that he could live inside my world. I could not live programming him. I had to let him live inside my environment and evolve, and I had to protect him by filling him with the way he had to learn how to live in society from where he was as an injured soul, spirit, however you want to classify it. So to me, that was the greatest achievement because where his doctor said the level of crisis he was at, he was going to pass within the 3, 4 years because of the complications and the things that he was doing to his body. I'm saying to you, we've developed a program, my wife and I, and we extended his life. He didn't die until 2013. Okay. We extended his life. That was the greatest moments I've ever experienced with my son. I mean, he taught me so much. And I'm saying, yeah, he has schizophrenia, but he learned how to live with us and other people. He was safe. And that was the key word. He was safe, and other people felt safe around him because we taught him how to move through us neurologically
Yeah.
and act like he could actually sense and feel us. Okay. And that was enough for him inside his spirit and soul to gamble and play with, because with children in crises, you got to teach them how to act through it. And when you teach them how to act through it, it becomes a game that they can internalize. And you may not realize it. That's why they're laughing because they know, hey, I'm doing it. I'm because they don't feel the way you feel.
Yeah.
And when you teach them how to act like they do, they look at the other side. And that's all I wanted my son to do was reflect from the outside in so that he began to understand trust. Trust is earned through signs of care.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about in the book. Yes.
That's a perfect lead in. If anyone wants to pick up this book, if they want to pick up previous books, reach out to you. Any questions? Where's the best place to go?
I'm talking about Amazon because Amazon right now has all the books on my author's page. I'm talking about my website isn't up yet, but it's supposed to be coming up shortly, humansystemscience.com. I'm talking about my YouTube channel. Why? Because I have events and activities associated with the book where I'm going to be talking about the book in the same way that you have me talking to you and your audience right now. And I'm saying to you that human system science is a new frontier in brain talk because that's what you and I have been doing. When you look at the way that neuroscience works, that's computer science. What you and I are doing is natural brain interaction, telling a story that each one of you have already experienced. because you're human, and I'm just putting the words in front of you, and you can evaluate what we're talking about. But at the end of the day, my brain is in the lead of my body, and this conversation is about brain talk. How do I communicate this book to you in a way that allows you to understand the new frontier is to learn how to talk to your child's brain, not your child's body. The neurophysics of self, and don't be afraid, because this is a new frontier in the 21st century because we are digital. Children are wireless. They must be allowed to move through the system as processors, okay, not be the subjects of the program, because now they got to, after you're gone, they got to live through the program and learn how to process it when they should be processing the program right now so they can be the new frontier technologically as human intelligence versus IT taking control of them. That's where we are inside this book as I talk about human intelligence. I'm saying, no, you got to learn how to live with your child and let your child evolve as a technology. And don't be afraid. That's better than your kid going through the killing fields, homeschool, and workplace networks. And at the end of the day, dying because of all the stuff they had to go through. So this is an intelligent A student who's now an F student because of the sociological traps they had to move through. So they're still that same person, but they've been degraded by the experience of that negative energy flow. And so here they are. And they're in college and they can't survive because their brains don't problem solve. That's how it is. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about on Zoom. That's what I'm talking about in my podcast. Yeah,
I love
just
it.
telling the story.
What a wonderful story. For just full of so much good, so much courage, so much inspiration. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.